Hi, my name is Trisha Hitchings and I'll be discussing the book Stacking the Deck. Stacking the Deck is by David Pottruck and it introduces a 9-step process that will implement breakthrough change without disrupting the enterprise as a whole or the employees within it. These steps can be summarized into 4 subgroups: planning, communication, unification, and implementation. Under planning, there are 4 steps that can be grouped as planning: developing and communicating clear and compelling vision of the future, planning ahead for known and unknown barriers, creating a workable plan, and defining metrics, developing analytics, and communicating results. Steps 3 and 4 focus on planning for the future to make a clear vision of the change to all members of the company in order to get their buy-in and support. And step 4 focuses on planning for unknown and known barriers to show leadership how these barriers will be addressed to reduce risk associated with the change. Steps 5 and 7 discuss developing a reasonable action plan for the change and defining metrics and analytics to measure the progress once the future vision and the barriers have been addressed. The next subgroup is communication, which has 3 steps within it. Step 1, establishing the need to change and a sense of urgency. Step 3, developing and communicating a clear and compelling vision of the future. And step 7, defining metrics, developing analytics, and communicating results. Step 1 introduces the need and the urgency to make a change within the organization. This step typically starts with the leaders of the organization so they can assist in communicating the importance and the urgency of the changes. They can also give you the resources needed to make these changes or give you the time to do so. Step 3 requires communicating the vision to the enterprise to continue to receive their support for the change, because without the enterprise's support, you're also not going to make the change. And then step 7 explains the importance of not only defining metrics and developing analytics, but being able to communicate these results and why it's important. The third grouping is unification, which encompasses step 2 and step 8, which is assembling and unifying leadership teams and assessing, recruiting, and empowering the broader team. So these 2 steps are in collaboration with leadership to ensure they fully understand the change and its necessity, but it also works on unifying the right team to assist the implementation enterprise-wide. Without the correct leadership team on board or a team that's passionate about the change will not get implemented successfully or even at all. So it's important to have unification and collaboration with these groups throughout the change in an organization. And then the final grouping is implementation, which is seen through steps 6 and 9. Step 6 is partitioning the project and building momentum with early wins. And step 9 is testing with pilots to increase success. Up until these points, the book discussed preparing for the change by planning and communicating the plan, and then also collaborating with the right groups to get the change accomplished. But these 2 steps introduce how to get started with actually accomplishing those wins through early wins with easy to complete tasks and testing pilots to ensure the success of the program. By doing this, it will be easier to secure resources needed to continue working on these changes, since early wins can show a successful program and successful progress, and it can also help win over those who were not originally convinced of the importance of the change. 3 key takeaways are the importance of enterprise-wide communication, articulation of importance and urgency, and choosing the right champions. So it's important to be able to communicate to the entire enterprise, because without the right kind of communication or clear communication, you're not going to get buy-in and support from all groups. So this includes communicating to leadership, because you need the buy-in from them to get the support to be able to make these changes. And that's support through resources, support through expertise that you may not have, and support for if you can't get the support from the employees, the leadership can help show the importance of these projects. And you need the buy-in from the employees because these are the ones that are going to help you make these changes, because they're the ones that have to either agree to it or actively work towards it. And if they're not happy or supportive of the change, they're ultimately either going to leave your company or the culture will become toxic. Articulating the importance of urgency and the urgency of the project is important, because unless the people see the importance of the change, they're not going to be willing to help and can possibly hurt the process. I'm actually currently going through this myself by implementing a reporting process change globally, and I've spent the last 2 weeks traveling to sites in Asia introducing the change. In the beginning of my conversations, they were very hesitant of the change, and they felt it was more work on their end and it wasn't going to be helpful, just hurtful to the company and waste time. But once we discussed the details of the project and how it would actually benefit them and the company as a whole, they were a lot more willing to listen to what we had to say and actually gave us feedback to make the process better, and going to help us implement the change at their level. So once everybody's on board, it's a lot easier to persuade the urgency of the change and accomplish the project according to the timeline, because everybody wants to do their part, and there's less likelihood of them dragging their feet. And the third takeaway is having the right people, or choosing the right champions for this project. I think it's important to have the right people working on the change, because they need to be enthusiastic about it so that everybody's upbeat. Changes can be very difficult, especially if they're global. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, and if you have the right people in place, it's less likely for those to happen. You have to give them a reason to pursue the work and give them purpose. And this includes having the right leadership in place to help provide support and expertise where you're lacking, as I've mentioned before, and they can help keep the culture upbeat for the employees, so the employees are happy to come to work. But you also need the employees to be passionate about the work and the company that you are, so you want to get the right employees in place that are needed to implement the change. If these individuals are all enthusiastic about the change, you'll probably be pretty successful and at least going forward with it and moving forward successfully. And I think there's a quote in the book that I felt encompassed this topic of having the right people. So you'll deal with 3 groups of people, and they're not evenly distributed. Often there are 5% who are going to embrace the change and 15% who never will. And then there's 80% of people who are in the middle who can make the change but will need some help to do so. So typically you want to get those 5% who are very enthusiastic about the change and are willing to embrace it, and put them in leadership positions that can help persuade the 80% to move in the right direction and move forward with the change. And then the company will typically see success. And I know I already gave a quote, but there's one other quote that I felt encompassed the whole process in general of making a change and breakthrough change enterprise-wide. And it's people hate change, people love progress, and the difference is purpose. And I think this is very true. If people don't see the point of a project, or there's no purpose to it, they're just going to see it as change and unnecessary change that's there to hinder their work-life balance. But if they see that it's actually going to do something for them or benefit them somehow, or maybe put the company in a better position, they'll see it as purpose and progress, and that the company is moving forward and putting themselves in a better position. So I think maybe changing the topic about the conversation of the change and making it more positive and how it's going to help the company and help the employees, rather than just forcing them to make the change, you'll have more success with it. And they'll be ultimately happier, and your company will be more successful. Thank you.